Nathan stepped off the plane, his footsteps heavy with the weight of years gone by. Each step through the crowded terminals of Clearwater Airport felt like a confrontation with his past. Once, he had dreamed of a luxurious life, and he had achieved it in the bustling city of Hampton. But that success now felt hollow, a shallow echo of what he had truly lost. As he entered the arrival area, an unexpected sight stopped him cold. Standing not far away was Emma, the woman he had abandoned 18 years ago. She stood with a young woman by her side, and Nathan's breath caught. The girl's features mirrored his own so unmistakably that it was as if he were staring at a younger version of himself. For a moment, Nathan was frozen. Emma looked almost the same as he remembered, though her expression carried a new weariness. Her companion, who he could only assume was his daughter, had a confidence and grace that struck him. Regret surged through Nathan as he tried to comprehend what he was seeing. Before he could gather the courage to approach them, they melted into the crowd, leaving him with a gnawing ache of loss and an overwhelming need to make things right. The airport buzzed with activity, but Nathan's mind was a storm of memories and guilt. The last time he had seen Emma, they were young and full of dreams, planning a life together. But his ambition had taken over, pulling him away to chase wealth and success. Now, standing amidst the bustling crowd, he realized the full weight of what his choices had cost. Determined, Nathan forced himself forward, heading toward the baggage claim area. He scanned the faces in the crowd, hoping for a glimpse of Emma or the young woman. His desperation led him to approach a security guard. "Excuse me," Nathan began, his voice tense. "I'm looking for someone. A woman and a young girl. She's about my age, with auburn hair, and the girl looks like me." The guard gave him a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry, sir. It's a busy day. Without more details, it's hard to help." Disheartened, Nathan thanked him and wandered to an airport cafe, collapsing into a seat. His thoughts spiraled into the past, revisiting the moment he had told Emma he was leaving for Hampton. She had pleaded with him to stay, her voice filled with tears and desperation, but his desire for success had drowned out her words. He left, unaware that she carried a secret that would shape both their lives forever. The years had been kind to his bank account, but cruel to his heart. Nathan's life had been filled with parties, penthouses, and power. Yet, in quiet moments, he had always felt a void, a nameless ache that no amount of money or accolades could fill. Meanwhile, Emma had been fighting battles he never knew. Raising their daughter alone, she had endured hardships that Nathan could only imagine. He hadn't realized how deep the scars of his departure had been. Not just for Emma, but for the child he had never met. Nathan clenched his fists, resolve hardening within him. He couldn't change the past, but he could try to make amends. He needed to find Emma and his daughter, whoever she was. Leaving the cafe, he decided to revisit places from his past with Emma. Maybe they would give him clues about her life now. He went to Evergreen Park, where they used to spend lazy afternoons under the oak trees, dreaming of a shared future. The park hadn't changed much, but it felt emptier without her by his side. Next, he visited the small house on Maple Street, where they had lived together briefly. Its peeling paint and overgrown yard were stark reminders of the life they had once shared and the promises he had broken. As he walked through these places, Nathan felt the full weight of his choices pressing on him. Every step brought memories flooding back, her laughter, her tears, and the love he had taken for granted. He knew now that leaving Emma had been the greatest mistake of his life. And seeing her again, with a daughter who could only be his, had awakened something in him. A desperate hope for redemption. But hope alone wouldn't be enough. To find them and earn their forgiveness, Nathan would need to summon every ounce of courage he had left. Nathan had spent years lost in the superficial splendor of his successful life, but now he understood the stark contrast between his indulgence and Emma's silent battle. She had raised their daughter, Maya, alone, enduring hardships he could barely imagine. The realization struck him deeply. While he chased fleeting achievements, Emma had fought tirelessly to create a life for their child. With a heavy heart, Nathan acknowledged the consequences of his actions. If he wanted any chance of regaining Emma and Maya's trust, he would need more than just determination. He would need a plan. He decided to hire a private investigator, someone with the skills to track down people who had become elusive. The search began immediately, and Nathan poured every resource into the effort. He knew he couldn't do this alone. The investigator Caleb started with public records, searching for traces of Emma's life. At the same time, Nathan revisited places that had been significant to them both, hoping to find some connection or hint of her current whereabouts. He returned to Willow Grove Park, where they used to spend hours talking about their future under the tall oak trees. He sat on the same worn benches where they had laughed and dreamed together. The park was the same, but it felt colder without Emma's warm presence. Next, Nathan visited the small home they had once shared on Sycamore Lane. The once vibrant house now seemed faded and forgotten, a symbol of the life he had abandoned. Each visit to these places brought back bittersweet memories, but they also deepened his regret. As Caleb continued his work, he managed to locate old friends of Emma's who still remembered her. One of them, a kind woman named Linda, offered a vital clue during their meeting. "I think she moved to a neighborhood on Riverbend Street a few years ago," Linda shared. "She was trying to start over. Maya is a bright young woman, but..." Linda hesitated before continuing. "She's had some health struggles." The mention of Maya's health troubles hit Nathan like a blow. He barely knew his daughter, but the idea of her suffering filled him with a deep ache. "Thank you," he said to Linda, his voice heavy with gratitude and concern. With renewed urgency, Caleb followed the lead, uncovering more details about Emma's life. Nathan felt the walls of his carefully constructed life in Hampton closing in on him, as his guilt and regret deepened. Each day of searching brought him closer to his family, but also closer to confronting the shame of his choices. Weeks passed, and finally, Caleb called with the news Nathan had been waiting for. "I have her address," Caleb said. "It's on Birchwood Avenue." Nathan's heart pounded as he drove to the modest house Caleb had described. His palms were clammy on the steering wheel, and his mind raced with questions. What would he say? How would Emma react? He parked in front of the house, taking a moment to steady his breathing. The house was unassuming but well cared for, a testament to Emma's resilience. Nathan forced himself out of the car, each step toward the door feeling heavier than the last. When he finally stood in front of the door, he hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorframe. Summoning his courage, he knocked, the sound echoing inside. He heard footsteps, and the door opened slowly, revealing Emma. They both froze, staring at each other in silence. Emma's face was a mixture of shock, caution, and pain. Nathan saw the years reflected in her eyes, years of struggle and heartbreak that he had caused. "Nathan," she said at last, her voice trembling slightly. "Emma," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I had to find you. I had to see you." Her expression hardened, the pain giving way to anger. "You left us, Nathan. You left me to fend for myself. You have no idea what I went through." Her words struck him like a series of sharp blows. He nodded, his gaze dropping. "I know, Emma, I made a terrible mistake. But I'm here now. I want to make things right." The reunion was fraught with tension, but Nathan knew it was only the beginning of his journey to earn back their trust. As Nathan stood in the modest hallway of the house, a young woman emerged from a nearby room. It was Maya, and her resemblance to him was unmistakable. Her sharp eyes flickered with both curiosity and mistrust as she took in the tense scene before her. "Who is he, Mom?" Maya asked, her voice edged with suspicion. Nathan turned to Emma, searching her face for confirmation of what he already knew in his heart. His voice faltered as he asked, "Emma, is this my daughter?" Emma hesitated, her eyes glistening with tears she tried to hold back. Finally she nodded. "Yes, Nathan. This is Maya. She's your daughter." The weight of the revelation hit Nathan like a tidal wave. His breath caught, and he murmured, almost to himself, "My daughter?" He looked at Maya, struggling to grasp the truth. "Why didn't you ever tell me, Emma?" Emma's expression hardened as she shook her head. "You left us, Nathan. I was scared, alone, and I didn't know how you'd react. And then, you never came back." The words pierced Nathan's chest like a dagger. He turned to Maya, his voice thick with regret. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Maya stood silent for a moment, processing the revelation. Her face shifted from confusion to anger, her voice sharp. "My father? The man who abandoned us?" Nathan swallowed hard, his shame evident. Maya, I know it's hard to hear and I know I made terrible mistakes, but I'm here now. I want to fix things. Maya crossed her arms, her glare unwavering. You think you can just show up and make everything okay? You don't know me. You don't know us. Nathan took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I know I can't change the past, Maya, but I want to be part of your future. I want to be the father you deserve. Emma, her eyes still brimming with tears, stepped in. Nathan, you can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be fine. It's been years of struggle, years of pain. I had to be strong, for myself and for Maya. And you? You weren't there. Nathan nodded, her words cutting into him. I know, Emma, and I'm so sorry. But I'm here now. I'll do whatever it takes to prove I've changed. The air between them was thick with tension. Maya's voice broke through the silence, cold and resolute. I don't have a father. I never did, and I won't now. Before anyone could respond, Maya turned on her heel and stormed back into her room, slamming the door behind her. Emma sighed deeply, the exhaustion clear in her posture as she looked at Nathan. Come in, Nathan. We need to talk. Nathan followed her into the living room, his steps heavy with guilt. The space was simple but welcoming, with subtle signs of a life lived through hardship but also love. He sank onto the couch while Emma settled into an armchair across from him. Maya is going through a lot, Emma began, her tone soft but serious. What do you mean? Nathan asked, his concern evident. Emma hesitated, then decided to speak openly. She's struggling in school. She feels abandoned and it's affecting her behavior, her grades, everything. She misses you, even if she won't admit it. Nathan felt his chest tighten with guilt. I didn't know. If I'd known, Emma, I would have come back sooner. Emma shook her head, her voice tinged with bitterness. That's just part of it, Nathan. Maya is also sick. She has a serious condition, and she needs ongoing treatment. Nathan's heart sank. What's wrong? How can I help? She has an autoimmune disease, Emma said with a heavy sigh. It's expensive to manage and she needs constant care. I'm doing everything I can, but it's not easy. Nathan leaned forward, his voice firm with resolve. Let me help, Emma. I can pay for her treatment, for whatever she needs. I want to be part of your lives, to help in any way I can. Emma's expression softened, but only slightly. It's not that simple, Nathan. Maya won't accept your help easily. She's angry at you. Angry at the years you weren't there, and to be honest, so am I. Nathan nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. I know, I have so much to make up for, but please, let me help with Maya's treatment. It's the least I can do. At that moment, Maya appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were red with tears, but they still burned with anger. We don't need you, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. We've managed on our own. You can't just show up now and fix everything with money. Nathan stood, taking a cautious step toward her. Maya, I know you're angry and you have every right to be, but I just want to help. Maya backed away, her arms crossed defensively. You can't fix everything with money, Nathan. You weren't here when we needed you. Now it's too late. Her words cut him deeply, but Nathan didn't back down. I know I can't change the past, Maya, but I can be here now. Please, let me try. Maya's expression didn't soften as she turned and walked away. Nathan stood in silence, the enormity of the road ahead pressing down on him. He knew earning their trust would be the hardest thing he'd ever done, but he was determined to try. Emma stood, placing a comforting hand on Maya's shoulder. Maya, she said softly, let's take this one step at a time. Nathan, if you want to help, it will be on our terms and in our time. Nathan nodded, accepting her condition. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I just want what's best for both of you. Emma's gaze softened, though a hint of doubt lingered. We'll see, Nathan, but know that this won't be easy. It's going to take time. Nathan agreed, his resolve unwavering. I'm not going anywhere. I'll prove that I'm here to stay. In the days that followed, Nathan worked tirelessly to integrate himself into their lives. One small gesture at a time. He visited regularly, helping around the house and trying to engage Maya in conversation, though her responses remained brief and guarded. Despite the resistance, Nathan sensed a faint crack in the wall she had built around her heart. Yet, one thing puzzled Nathan, the quiet strength that Emma and Maya seemed to draw upon. It was something intangible but steady, like a wellspring of resilience he didn't fully understand. One Sunday morning, Emma approached him with an invitation. Would you like to come to church with us? Nathan hesitated. Church wasn't something he had ever been drawn to, but the curiosity to understand the source of their strength pushed him to agree. Sure, he said, trying to mask his uncertainty. When they arrived at Harmony Chapel, Nathan was struck by its simplicity. The wooden pews and stained glass gave the space a quiet warmth. As Emma and Maya entered, they were greeted warmly by members of the congregation, who seemed to know them well. Nathan observed the sense of community and care that filled the room. The sermon was led by Pastor Daniel, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor and a kind smile. He spoke about faith, hope, and the power of perseverance, weaving his words with relatable anecdotes. Nathan noticed how engaged Emma was, her face reflecting a quiet peace. Even Maya, though still visibly hurt, seemed to listen intently, seeking some kind of solace. After the service, Pastor Daniel approached with a welcoming smile. Emma, it's always wonderful to see you and Maya here. And you must be Nathan, he said, extending his hand. Yes, Pastor, Emma replied. This is Nathan. Nathan shook the pastor's hand, feeling a bit of nervousness creep in. It's nice to meet you, he said politely. It's good to meet you too, Nathan. I've heard that you've come back into Emma and Maya's lives. That's a big step, and I know it's not an easy road. But I'm here to support you if you ever need it, Pastor Daniel said kindly. Nathan nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. Thank you, Pastor. I know I have a lot of work to do to regain their trust. Pastor Daniel gestured toward the garden behind the chapel. Would you like to talk for a moment? They walked to a bench surrounded by blooming flowers, and Pastor Daniel began. Faith has been a great refuge for Emma and Maya. When you left, this community gave them strength and support. Emma, in particular, leaned on her faith to get through some incredibly tough times. Nathan listened carefully, his mind churning. I can see how much it's helped them, he said. Faith isn't just about believing in something greater, Pastor Daniel continued. It's also about finding connection and strength through community. Emma found friends here who stood by her when things were hardest. Even for Maya, despite her resistance, this place has been a source of comfort. Nathan hesitated, but felt compelled to speak his truth. Pastor, I'm not sure I can believe in any of this. I've spent my whole life believing in what I can see and touch: money, success, results. Faith is foreign to me. Pastor Daniel smiled gently, his tone understanding. Faith is a deeply personal journey, Nathan. It's not something you have to embrace overnight. The fact that you're here trying to understand is already a significant step. Nathan felt a mix of relief and inner conflict. I want to help Emma and Maya, but I don't know if I can do it through faith. Pastor Daniel nodded. Help comes in many forms. What matters is your sincerity and your willingness to change. Your presence already means more than you realize. Keep trying, even if it's in your own way. Nathan left the church that day with much to think about. The road ahead still seemed daunting, but he felt the faintest glimmer of hope. For the first time, he began to understand the strength Emma and Maya had drawn from their faith and community, and why it had kept them moving forward, even in his absence. Maya sat at the back of her classroom, her gaze fixed on the window, utterly detached from the math lesson taking place. Her mind swirled with frustration and confusion, stirred even further by Nathan's sudden reappearance in her life. The hurt and anger she felt toward him made it impossible to focus on anything. Maya had always been a diligent student, but the past few months had been particularly tough. At school, she faced constant challenges. Whispers followed her in the hallways as classmates labeled her the girl with the absent father and stressed-out mother. Some pitied her, others mocked her, and every cruel word or sympathetic glance only deepened her sense of isolation. Adding to the burden was her health. Frequent hospital visits and exhausting treatments for her autoimmune condition made her miss classes regularly, putting her further behind. The illness left her physically drained and mentally frustrated, compounding her struggles. At home, the tension was no better. Emma worked tirelessly to maintain a stable environment, but Nathan's presence disrupted their fragile balance. Maya avoided him at every turn, refusing to engage in even the simplest interactions. Her anger simmered just below the surface, fed by years of resentment and the sting of abandonment. She couldn't forgive him for leaving her mother to face everything alone. Nathan, for his part, tried his best to bridge the gap. He sought to initiate conversations, asking Maya about her day or showing interest in her hobbies. But each attempt was met with frosty silence or curt replies. Each rejection fueled both his determination and his growing despair. He knew rebuilding her trust would require patience, persistence, and consistent actions, not just words. One night, after a particularly difficult day, Maya locked herself in her room. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled with the overwhelming weight of it all. Her illness, school challenges, and the chaos Nathan's return had brought into her life. She felt powerless, caught in a storm she couldn't escape. Emma knocked gently on Maya's door, her voice soft and filled with concern. "Maya, sweetheart, can I come in?" "No, Mom," Maya cried, her voice muffled by the pillow she clutched tightly. Emma sighed, pressing her forehead against the door. "Maya, I know it's hard, but you need to give your father a chance. He's trying, honey." "He left us, Mom," Maya sobbed. "He didn't care about us then, and now he thinks he can just show up and fix everything? I don't want him here." In the hallway, Nathan overheard the conversation. Her words stung, cutting into his heart like a blade. He leaned against the wall, feeling helpless. He wished he could step in and reassure her, but he knew that anything he said would only feel hollow. He had to show her through his actions that he was serious about being a part of her life. Maya wrestled with her emotions long after the conversation ended. Her pain and anger felt all-consuming, but there was a small, quiet part of her that yearned for the father she had imagined from her mother's stories. Emma had shared tales of the man Nathan used to be, kind, funny, and full of dreams. But those memories were overshadowed by the betrayal of his absence. At school, Maya struggled to maintain a facade of normalcy. She put on a brave face, but inside she felt fractured. The whispers from her peers, the stress of catching up on missed work, and her health challenges all weighed heavily on her. And at home, Nathan's presence was a constant reminder of everything she had lost. For Nathan, the challenges were multiplying. The more he tried to reconnect with Emma and Maya, the more his old life tugged at him. His business in Summit City demanded his attention, with constant calls and emails from his assistant reminding him of urgent issues. One morning, while trying to review critical documents in Emma's cramped home office, his phone rang yet again. "Sir, the investors are losing patience," his assistant said, her voice tinged with urgency. "We need you here for the meeting next week. It's crucial." Nathan exhaled heavily, the tension in his chest mounting. He knew he was needed at work, but he couldn't bear to leave his family now. "I understand," he said, his voice firm but weary. "But I can't leave right now. I'll handle what I can remotely." The push and pull between his professional obligations and his personal mission to make amends only added to his stress. Maya, perceptive as ever, noticed his distraction. To her, it felt like he was prioritizing his work over her once again, further cementing her mistrust. Nathan could feel the weight of the challenges piling up. He was trying to rebuild bridges, but every step forward seemed to come with new obstacles. Yet no matter how overwhelming it became, he resolved to stay the course. For Emma, for Maya, for the family he had nearly lost. "I'll try to handle as much as I can from here," Nathan replied into the phone, his tone steady but fraying at the edges. As the days wore on, the pressures from his company in Summit City began to spill into his efforts to reconnect with Emma and Maya. Though he was physically present in their small home, Nathan's mind often wandered back to the unresolved crises at work. The constant buzzing of his phone with urgent updates and messages seemed to occupy him more than his family. Maya, always perceptive, noticed his distraction. To her, it felt like nothing had changed. He still cared more about his career than the people he had left behind. One evening, as Emma prepared dinner in the kitchen, Nathan approached Maya, determined to reach out to her again. "Maya," he said softly, sitting down near her. "I know things are tough right now, but I want you to know I'm here. I want to be the father you deserve." His voice carried genuine sincerity. Without looking at him, Maya responded coldly. "You say that, but you're always on the phone solving your business problems. It's the same as before. You still care more about your work than us." Her words hit Nathan with the force of a hammer. He knew she was right. He was physically close, but emotionally distant, failing to bridge the gap between them. Despite being miles away from his office, he realized he was still worlds away from connecting with his daughter. The breaking point came when an urgent situation at his company demanded Nathan's immediate attention. He spent hours on the phone that evening, pacing in the living room while Emma and Maya stayed in their rooms, isolating themselves further. The walls of his professional life and personal life seemed to be closing in on him simultaneously, and he knew his efforts to reconnect were faltering. The next morning, Pastor Daniel stopped by to visit. He found Nathan slouched on the couch, exhaustion etched into his face, dark circles shadowing his eyes. "Nathan," the pastor began gently, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder, "I can see you're carrying a lot. Balancing all of this isn't easy." Nathan exhaled a shaky breath, his voice raw with frustration. "I don't know what to do, Pastor. It feels like I'm failing on every front. My business, my family, everything." Pastor Daniel nodded, his tone calm and steady. "Remember, Nathan, you don't have to carry all this alone. There are people willing to help you, here in the community, and even at work. Maybe it's time to delegate more responsibilities there and focus on what matters most right now." Nathan knew the pastor was right, but the solution wasn't easy. His responsibilities at the company were massive, but Emma and Maya needed him now more than ever. How could he possibly balance the two? The question consumed him as the crisis in his life deepened. Meanwhile, Maya continued to struggle. Her lupus brought frequent hospital visits and a constant cycle of treatments that left her drained. The burden on Emma was heavy too. Every day was a fight to ensure Maya received the care she needed, while also trying to keep the household afloat. One particularly difficult evening, Emma couldn't hold her frustration back any longer. Nathan was sitting on the couch, his head buried in his hands, when she entered the room. Her eyes were red with fatigue, her face tight with tension. "Nathan, I can't take it anymore," she began, her voice trembling with pent-up emotion. "You have no idea what I've been through all these years. I had to raise Maya by myself, with no support. I worked tirelessly to provide for us, facing judgment every step of the way for being a single mother." Nathan looked up, guilt and sadness etched across his face. "Emma, I know I was wrong, but I'm here now, trying my best to make it right." Emma shook her head, tears streaming freely now. "You don't understand, Nathan. It's not just about you being here now. I never got to live my own life. I never got to marry or even consider a relationship because Maya needed all of me. With her health so fragile, there was no room for anything else in my life." Nathan's throat tightened, a painful knot forming as he absorbed her words. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much you were suffering." Her tone grew bitter. "How could you know? You were in Summit City, living your dream, building your career, while I was here fighting every day to survive. Do you know what that's like?" Nathan slumped further into the couch, her words hitting him like a series of sharp blows. He knew there was nothing he could say to undo the years of pain and hardship she had endured alone. But her anger only strengthened his resolve. "I can't undo the past, Emma," he said quietly. "But I'm here now, and I won't leave again. Whatever it takes, I'll do it, for you and for Maya." Emma wiped away her tears, her face resolute. "Words aren't enough, Nathan," she replied, her voice firm. "Maya needs to see that you truly care. All she sees right now is a man who abandoned her and thinks he can solve everything with money." Nathan nodded, her words cutting into him like a blade. "I understand. I'll prove it to you both. I'll do whatever it takes." But deep down, he realized that the road ahead would be anything but easy. Emma's words echoed in his mind, each one a painful reminder of the suffering she and Maya had endured in his absence. That evening, as the house grew quiet, chaos suddenly erupted. Maya, who had seemed to be improving, began crying out in pain. Emma rushed to her room to find Maya doubled over, her breathing labored and her face pale. "Maya, take deep breaths," Emma said, her voice trembling as she tried to stay calm. "It's going to be okay." But the panic in her eyes betrayed her words. Hearing the commotion, Nathan ran into the room. Without hesitation, he lifted Maya into his arms and carried her to the car. Emma climbed into the back seat, holding Maya's hand tightly and whispering soothing words as Nathan drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. His mind raced with fear and guilt, the thought of losing Maya unbearable. At the hospital, the medical team acted swiftly, taking Maya into the emergency room. Nathan and Emma were left in the waiting area, the sterile walls pressing in around them. Emma cried softly, her face buried in her hands, while Nathan sat motionless, staring at the floor, his mind haunted by Emma's earlier words about facing everything alone. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Suddenly, Pastor Daniel appeared, having been called by a desperate message from Emma. He approached Nathan and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Nathan," the pastor said gently, "in moments like this, we need faith. Let's pray for Maya together." Nathan looked at Pastor Daniel, his face a mix of despair and hesitation. "Pastor, I don't know if I can. I've never been a man of faith. I don't know how to believe in something I can't see." The pastor nodded, his expression understanding. Faith is difficult, especially in times of crisis, but it can also be a source of strength. Let's try together. Reluctantly, Nathan followed the pastor to the small hospital chapel. Kneeling on the worn cushions, Pastor Daniel began to pray, his voice calm and steady. Nathan closed his eyes, the unfamiliar words feeling strange yet oddly comforting. "God," Nathan murmured, haltingly, his voice cracking with emotion. "I know I haven't been a man of faith, but I'm here, asking, begging, for my daughter's life. Please help Maya." As the prayer continued, Nathan felt an unexpected wave of emotions rising within him. Memories long buried began to surface, including a secret he had carried alone for years. "Pastor," he said, his voice heavy with pain, "there's something I need to confess." Pastor Daniel turned to him, his eyes encouraging. "Speak, Nathan. I'm here to listen." Nathan hesitated before beginning. "When I left Emma, it wasn't just ambition that drove me. I was running from something else. Before I met Emma, I had a son with another woman. I was young and selfish, and I abandoned them both. Years later, I heard that my son got involved with a gang and that he died. I never forgave myself for leaving him or his mother. The guilt has haunted me every day since." The pastor took a deep breath, absorbing the confession. "Nathan, we all carry burdens from our past. Regrets, mistakes, they weigh us down. What matters is what we choose to do moving forward. Use this moment as a step toward redemption. You are here now, trying to make things right. That's a start." Nathan nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his guilt begin to shift, even if just slightly. When they returned to the waiting room, a doctor approached. "Maya is stable," he said, his tone calm but firm. "We'll need to monitor her closely, but for now, she's doing better." Relief flooded both Nathan and Emma. As they went to see Maya, Nathan silently vowed to do whatever it took to make amends, not just for Maya and Emma, but for the mistakes he had made long before. When Maya was finally discharged, she was weak but managed a faint smile as Nathan helped her into the car. Emma, sitting in the back seat, watched her daughter carefully. The drive home was quiet but peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos that had preceded it. Once they arrived, Nathan and Emma worked together to make Maya as comfortable as possible. They arranged pillows and blankets on the couch in the living room, ensuring she had everything she needed. Nathan took on the role of caregiver with unwavering commitment. He prepared her meals, ensured she took her medications, and spent hours sitting by her side. As the days passed, Maya's initial coldness toward Nathan began to thaw. She started opening up, bit by bit, allowing moments of connection to slip through the cracks in her guarded exterior. One evening, as Maya rested on the couch, Nathan sat beside her and gently took her hand. "Maya," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I know things haven't been easy, and I know there's still a lot we need to work through. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, always." Maya looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of emotions, hurt, hope, and gratitude. "I know, Dad," she said softly. "I'm starting to see that." Her words filled Nathan with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. That night, they talked for hours. Nathan shared stories about his life in Summit City, his successes, and the regrets that haunted him. In turn, Maya spoke about her experiences at school, her friendships, and her dreams for the future. For the first time, they were getting to know each other, not just as father and daughter, but as two people trying to bridge a long and painful gap. Emma stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. A lump rose in her throat as she saw the connection forming between Nathan and Maya. For years, she had carried the weight of being both mother and father to Maya. Now, for the first time, it felt as though they were a family again. Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of hope. Later that evening, as Nathan and Maya continued their conversation in the living room, Emma joined them. She sat next to Maya, wrapping an arm around her daughter and reaching out to hold Nathan's hand. Together, they formed a circle of love and support, a small but powerful reminder that despite everything, they were still united. The reunion hadn't been easy. The wounds of the past still lingered, and the road ahead promised to be filled with challenges. But with each slow, deliberate step, they were beginning to rebuild their lives together. Nathan felt a profound sense of gratitude as he looked at the two people who meant everything to him. The faith and love that had sustained Emma and Maya were now beginning to envelop him as well, providing a newfound sense of hope. Emma smiled, her heart finally at peace. For the first time in years, she could envision a future filled with possibility. With Nathan by her side and Maya at the center of their lives, she knew they could overcome any obstacle that lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, but together, they were ready to face it, one step at a time. If this story of redemption, love, and healing moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share with your loved ones. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an inspiring story.